Hello and welcome back to the Roker Rapport Xtra Podcast. Thanks very much for tuning back in. It's our second one of the week. Obviously we had the Aston Villa one during the week, which was a nice chat. Wasn't particularly a nice game, but they never are. Seemingly over the past few weeks, that's another nail in the coffin, I think. And I think that's us. I think we're pretty much all agreeing it's looking like League One, moving forward. I can't see us getting out of it. Most people feel the same way. I've talked about it being 10 cup finals, but it's starting to feel like it's going to be 10 more games where we can just get used to the plummet that's going to come. But nonetheless, the Xtra Podcast does like to interview fans of clubs that are going to beat us on the weekend. So this week we've got Paul Finney from the QPR Podcast. How are you doing, Paul? Are you all right?
I'm all right. Normally you said the sort of thing I normally say when we're doing our podcast about how bad we are. So I feel your pain, big man. Not
as bad as us, and I think everyone can agree on that. How's your season been so far in summary?
To be honest, going back to you guys, when I went to your place this season, I couldn't believe how fed up everyone was and how upset they were. Well, I understand why they're upset, but just not the Sunderland we know and love. Isn't you go up there and you get loads of abuse in a nice way, and there's a real buzz to the place, and it's just your orders have killed you, big man, and I apologise for them because no football club should be going through what you guys are going through. It's a flipping disgrace. But yeah, our season's been a bit up and down. We're kind of like pretending we're not spending lots of money when we probably still are, and we're still spending a wee bit of money and not really performing. But we're told that we're going to rebuild ourselves, and in a couple more years we can come out of what was paying a load of mercenaries for the Premier League. As you well know yourself, doesn't work, and we got relegated.
If there's one thing we've all noticed this week, is how much everyone else, like fans of other clubs, have started really realising what it is that's happening to Sunderland, because there's so many clubs, I think, and I think because we're at we're getting towards the business end of the season, there's been a lot of the Championship clubs who haven't been to the stadium for since the days of Kevin Phillips and whatnot. QPR a little bit different. Obviously, you've been relatively recently, but I think people are starting to click how dire the situation is with Sunderland and how bad it really is getting. I wasn't planning on asking this, but nonetheless, I will.
Nice.
You came to the stadium, right? Obviously, it was a 1-1 draw, which for people listening, I had a month and a half break from the stadium, because I live in Glasgow, so I had to take a month and a half break, and it's the only time I've did it since '97. But the last time I seen Sunderland score a goal in the flesh was Aidan McGeady against QPR, and I've been to about 7 games since then. We've been 2-0 down in almost every game. So for people listening, and for QPR fans are like, that's how dire it can be supporting Sunderland. I haven't seen us win in about 460 days. I haven't seen us score a goal in the flesh since October, and I have been to about 7 or 8 games in that time. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah. How bad was it when you came up? What were you expecting, and what did you get?
Well, normally when you go up, because of, I know a few Sunderland fans down here and stuff, and, it's all about the club, and it's all about pride and the passion and the glory of what's been before and everything else. With that, like QPR, you don't expect anything, because you know that as soon as someone buys you and pretends to put loads of money in, you're going to walk straight into a brick wall. But what I noticed was how the atmosphere was so just people, I suppose, going through the motions. That's what it looked like as an away fan. And the fans are just didn't seem to really just numb. I think that's the only way I could describe it, was the fans were numb and you could feel it, and it was horrible to watch. Any club, whether it's Sunderland, Stockport or anyone, no one should be going through that. It's just, and we've been through it ourselves with really bad, dodgy owners who just want to rip the heart out of you and change the ethos of everything you stand for and try and make you into something that you're not. And when it goes horribly wrong like this, and it's all very well for everyone to have sympathy with you, but sometimes you do wonder what the Football League and the Premier League, why they let these idiots get control of football clubs that they end up destroying so badly and get it so wrong. And there's nothing the fans can do. It's quite an outrage, really.
I mean, when it comes to, when you're looking at QPR, it was another team that, and one of our boys, one of my mates, Tom, he wrote an article, and there was a point he put in, and he was talking about clubs, and he's like, it happens to Coventry, it happens to Wolves, it happens to QPR, and he went through a few lists of clubs, but you never think it's going to be your club that it happens to. And I feel like right now we're like the Coventry City of however many years ago that was. And it's funny, you mentioned before about, the fans kind of almost giving up, and you're right in a sense. It's a very apathetic feel in the stadium, and has been since probably mid David Moyes, I would say. But I mean, it really is quite dire at the moment, if I'm honest with you. I don't see us getting out of it at all.
Well, I mean, listen, we dipped into that division when we were really going through after administration, and the lovely Mr. Winkleman came down and tried to create an MK Rangers to move us up to where he stole MK Dons from and move us to a lot of people don't really know that, but it came very close to us being the Wimbledon that was going to be stolen and taken up there, and it was horrible. And the vultures just circle around your club, but it's just, you kind of hope the next owner is going to be better than last owner, but they just see the ground, they see real estate, they see money signs, and when a club loses money, I always think with these charlatans, it's always a lot easier for them to make money, because if you lose 1 million, it doesn't make a difference if you lose 10 million. No one's looking for it, do you know what I mean? And then someone comes in and buys it all, and then they get all their money back and they bugger off and then leave the club in an absolute disgraceful thing. But I mean, League One isn't, it's so hard, especially you're going to be going down. If you do go, I hope you don't, but like yourself, I'd be lying if I didn't say I thought you were, you're more or less down. You're a big fish, do you know what I mean? And like everyone wants to beat you, so it's 10 times harder to get out of that flipping league than if you're just a small. I don't like calling clubs big or small, but I mean you're going to be huge in that league. I mean, Sunderland are massive, and to be in League One, everyone's going to want to beat you. And then, of course, you've got the problem getting tickets. But let's hope if you do go down, you get rid of this lot of clowns, and then you can come up and hopefully get saved by some kind of fan saviour type who's out there. There must be someone out there who wants to save Sunderland. There has to be.
I hope so. We spoke a few times, because there's a lot of clubs in this division that have gone through what your club has, what Sunderland are going through, where we've had that drop and we've had an amount of personalities that are just not. They just don't fit the ethos or the idea of the club. And obviously QPR are probably the highest profile of all of those clubs that signed big money players that just didn't give a flying fuck about QPR, let's be honest, and everyone could see it. I mean, you're not flying. Let's not deny it. You're not flying, but you're not where we are. You don't look like you're in trouble of relegation. It looks like it's going to be a steady season. Have you found getting rid of, and I know it's a process, but getting rid of all those players that you got rid of on big money, has that changed the outlook of QPR as a whole, or are you still going through that process?
We're still going through it, and you know what? We're nowhere near the woods like we should be. I mean, I personally think there's a real missed opportunity, because he kind of went to the game Tuesday against Derby. Like a few years ago, we beat Derby in probably the most one-sided playoff final I've ever seen in my life, and thank God we won it. They battered us, and we won it, and there was 40,000 of each fans on Tuesday. It was half empty. The away end was half empty. The home fans had given up, and we, because of apathy, whatever. But also in QPR's wisdom, they've made walk-ups almost impossible to afford for Championship football, and they've decided to put an extra £5 on the day. So if you're a Sunderland fan travelling down on Saturday and you don't book your ticket beforehand, you might want to do that, because they're going to bang you with a £5 surcharge on the day, which is just ridiculous. But going back to it, we're not out of it. We're going to have to slash our wage bill again next season. We've got a financial fair play fine, which I think is going to be between 40 and 50 million. And I just hope to God we don't get a points deduction, because that's just going to be a nightmare. But as usual, the fans will suffer the mistakes of the owners. I mean, I knew it was going wrong for Queen's Park Rangers when we signed the likes of Joey Barton, and you're getting all these sort of headline moves and players coming in like Park from Man U at the wrong end of their career, and they just had no enthusiasm. And then we're banned absolute Egypt from that sack of shite down the road called Chelsea. And you kind of just thinking to yourself, this is not how my club should be. I want to see youngsters out there. I want to see people come from the youth team. I want to, you sing one of your own, and you really want to do one of your own and stuff, and get the clever buys. Like we had a player we brought years ago from York City. You might remember him, called Johnny Byrne. He was an absolute legend at QPR, and I loved Johnny Byrne, and he was a great player. And that's who you want to see your club bring through. I don't want the big time Charlies. They don't care about us. They don't care about anything. They just want to go. We're in a situation where, like, people like with Sean Wright Phillips just going out to nightclubs and not giving a rat's arse about what he was doing at QPR. It was vile. And to be honest with you, I didn't enjoy the Premier League, apart from beating what we call the scum twice, which was Chelsea, obviously, and the odd game, the game against Man City. It's a half and half scarves. It's a ticket totes outside. You don't recognise people. We're a small club. And we all know each other. Do you know what I mean? All of a sudden, the media want to know everything about you and everything else. But yeah, sorry, I keep going away from the question.
We do that often.
I'm just you need to vent these things. I think next season is going to be really hard for us, because we're going to slash the wage bill. We're bringing youngsters through, which is good to see and much needed. and you kind of hope that they've got the impetus to take us further. And goodbye to the big time Charlies, and hopefully more things to come. This is more positive. We might even win an FA Cup match in the next 20 flipping years. But I think we're going to have a few more dark seasons before we come out of this. And this is purely because we can't even cheat well and beat FFP. It's ridiculous. The hundreds of millions we spent. And do you know what the sad thing about it is? We haven't got a proper training ground. There's no legacy. We spent hundreds of millions of pounds, and all we did was make agents rich. And that makes my blood boil, because we didn't build 1 ounce of a legacy. And, you know, it's all right, the club's saying lessons learned, but surely once you spend 50, 60 million, you're not getting nothing back. You've got to say to yourself, this isn't working, lads. Let's call it a day. And if we go down, we go down from the Premier League. The Premier League's not the be and end all of everything. Your club's far more important than the league you're in. Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's funny, the thing you're saying, one thing that you mentioned, obviously, about the points deduction, and I've heard that as well. I heard something about that where you could be in serious danger of it. But then when you said it, I immediately kind of crapped my own pants and thought, well, I know we've got problems, and there's people that, you know, it doesn't really take a genius to work out where we're at the moment financially either. If we go down, or either of us go down, and like you say, I think you're out of it, but you know, there's still a chance. How damaging could it realistically be? Like, it feels like with Sunderland, there's a trap door, and we feel like we've hit the bottom, and it feels like there could be another one to fall through. When I think about how badly we're doing and where we're likely to be going, I mean, I heard the other day that you get next to nothing for winning League One. Basically, I think it's like $1 million or something like that. I could be completely wrong with that, but it's not much. So where does the finance come from if he can't sell the club? I mean, I'm worried that he can't. There must be someone, but I've been saying that for the best part of a year now, and it's getting a bit worrying, actually.
I think what you don't want is frying pan scenario of like when you're in the Championship, you're just that one league below what they consider the Holy Grail, what they want what they always call a brand. We call it our culture, our club, our history, our everything. They call it a brand.
That's a very valid point. Very valid point.
Do you know what I mean? And you're one step down from them getting their brand where they want it to be. When you're 2 steps away, you're open to everyone. And, you know, Sunderland's a massive club. You shouldn't be in this position. I'm not just saying that, to, you know, because you've been good enough to ask me to talk to your podcast. It's just, it is ridiculous how, you know, it happens so easily. And there's I keep saying there's no responsibility from the Football League or the Premier League. They just let these clowns. I mean, we had a massive clown called Gianni Palladini running us for years, and he was just an absolute idiot. And there's no comeback in these things. They can do whatever they want. And then when they do get found out and they leave with a hell of a mess. The fans are left holding the fort, and there's no help from the FA or anyone, and it's usually fans going through their own associations and get themselves together to sort clubs out. Do you know what? It's incredible how the Football League and the FA just wash their hands of these things, and yet they let the idiots control the clubs without any checks on them at all. It seems that any Tom, Dick and Harry can get hold of a football club and destroy 150 years of history. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, it's completely spot on with what you say about Ellis Shaw, about the leave the fans to carry the can. And the weird thing with Sunderland is Ellis Shaw's kind of left Martin Bain to carry this basically stripping of assets job, is from what I can see, and we're left to just sort of deal with it, where he just sits in wherever he's bloody living at the moment. I mean, I don't think he's been all season. So how can he be actively trying to sell the club like he promises he is if he's not even in the bloody country? Like, it's like his toy is broken beyond the point of being interesting. So that's it. You know, you should just leave it. If you look at the players we brought in January, there were loan signings and free transfers. I mean, we signed Kazenga Lawar, who, to be honest with you, I know he played for you guys, but he hasn't really even shown up for us. He played once or twice and looked all right as a sub, and now he's injured again. I mean, I don't think he had a very good time at QPR either, did he? But I think that was personal issues.
He lost his father last season. Before that, you know, so it's hard to judge because, you know, no one wants to go through that. So it's hard to say whether he's still in the grieving process and going through it all. I don't know. But when he left QPR this year, it was with, you know, basically, you know, a door opened, he went out of it, and he would never be spoke of again. No one really thought of him much, obviously. We remember him for the horrible tragedy he had, but playing-wise, he just didn't do it for us at all. and it didn't work. And it was probably stopping our kids coming through. I think it looks to me like the kid's lost his appetite, and Brighton just want to try and get him out the door. So if he's injured again, God knows what's going to happen.
I mean, when he's came on for us, he's looked positive, but it's been 20 minutes here or there, and I mean, I'm not being funny here at all, because I do have a trust in Coleman, although it is waning, I must be honest, because I don't think he's doing the job, or anywhere near the job I expected, but I think he's the least of our problems, to be totally honest. I do think, mentally he's the right man, he says the right stuff, and he has an understanding of the club. But the signings he brought in, like his men, you've got Lee Camp, who's been very, very poor, incredibly poor, in fact. Ashley Fletcher, who's been absolutely woeful. Then you've got Ajaria, who is a loan signing from Liverpool. He's been pointless, really. Then you've got Loa, who's been, again, kind of pointless. And then you've also got on top of that Jake Clark-Salter, who's probably played the most out of all of them and not really pulled up any trees. And you say, they've only been here 5 minutes, but we're into March now. We haven't got time.
Yeah.
We really don't. We have 10 games and we're 8 points behind Bolton. And that terrifies me, because Bolton's had the same issues as us. And I think it just goes to show how much it's not always about the finances and who you can buy and who you can't buy. Sometimes it's about the attitude of an entire football club, which stems right from the top. I feel like a broken record saying this sometimes, but I really think it is. I think, when QPR went down, I remember when you went down, when you had, like, as you mentioned before, Park Ji-sung, Rio Ferdinand, Basingwa and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes, you had bad apples in the club and stuff like that. But how much of that, from my perspective, it seemed a bit of apathy, like you knew you were going down by like October time. Did you feel like that as well? Did that just manifest itself over seasons?
Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't have so much bad apples as bad orchards. Yeah, you kind of, listen, you get it. Like, I've been watching football since I was a kid. I grew up in Belfast watching an Irish club called Glentoran, and came to London and watched QPR, and you kind of, football fans aren't stupid, and they can tell if a player's shirking a challenge, if they're going in for it. If like Joey Barton, he came to the club and he was all talk and bluster and this, that and the other, but he did nothing for us, really. And he wasn't the only one. There was so many of them. I mean, you mentioned Basingwa. When we got relegated, he came off the pitch laughing. And as a fan, that hurts you. That's soul destroying, because you know you're being conned, but for them to be so blatant about it is just outrageous, and it just makes your blood boil. Whereas, to be honest with you, a lot of the lads we've got now are a lot more honest, and they might not have the ability that some of these guys have, but they've got a hell of a lot more heart. And that's the only thing you can take out of these things. We got rid of Kolka this year. I mean, he was probably one of the last ones lying around, but and a lot of money, and it was said he had mental health issues and everything else. I don't want to slag the fellow off, but it's just, the money that these guys are on. I mean, we were paying people like 70, 80 grand a week. We'd like, to sum QPR up, we had like Robert Green in goal, and also Cesar from Brazil, 2 of the National World Cup goalkeepers in a QPR. And you're like, there's no way we can afford this. This is insanity. And apparently Cesar was taking a helicopter to the training ground and stuff. But it's just, you know what? Before, we used to walk down the road and you could have Johnny Byrne there, or you could have Gary Bannister walking down from the tube station. You'd have a wee arm with them and you'd talk away to the players, or Big Alan McDonald and people like that. And, they would talk to you and have time for you. Once we got into this Premier League scenario, they were putting things up between the fans and the players. And it was like Madame Tussauds. They were coming around, signing autographs and going in. It was everything that I hate about modern football. And then the flipping half and half scarves. Oh, Jesus, I don't think I'll ever go over them. Can you imagine having there's a case, I actually sat, the fella was in front of me, and it was against Chelsea. And he had a half and half QPR and Chelsea scarf on. And I've just said to him, you need to get rid of that, pal. And he's like, why? I goes, because I'm just going to burn it. And he's looking at me and he's like, I'm a QPR fan. And I was like, not a chance.
No.
Nah. Because you've got that shite on, and that's just wrong. And you don't miss them sort of people. So there is that, listen, there's kind of the position you guys are in. I'm not going to be condescending or in any way. I would hate to be in that position that you're in, and people come and say, you never know, you might rise from the fire, the phoenix arises. It's a long, horrible road, and you just hope that someone comes in and someone gets you, and someone gets your culture, gets your community, and gets what your club is about, and starts putting it back together again. And I'm sure even I would take a 10-year gap and return eventually, but to return as a club that you fell in love with, and not this just horrible thing that the team come out and they've got the big flipping fire things and they've got people dancing around the pitch. It's all like America gone wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's like you need to keep the soul of your club together. And I think that's what you just said sums it up. If you've got loan players coming in, they're going to be here for 5 minutes. They don't care. That they'll go again in the season and go on the travel somewhere else. You need people who get your club, who get your ambitions, who get your dreams, who have got time for the fans and can identify and reach out. It doesn't matter whether you're Sunderland or York City or anyone like that. You've got to have a bond between the fans and the club.
Yeah, no, completely. And that's what feels like is kind of missing at the moment. From when I went to the game on Tuesday against Villa, and it's almost like, and I mean, you could say, a lot of people say to me, oh, but Sunderland have been fighting relegation for so many seasons and it was always going to happen. But, there was something about Sunderland when we hit sort of like the end of February, March time in those Premiership seasons where we kind of went, all right, then, like, let's fucking have it sort of thing. Our attitude kind of got us out of it, the club as a whole. And that's why we had the Paolo Di Canio's, the Dick Advocars, the Allardyces. No matter who was in charge, the same attitude went forth and the fans helped with that. And then Moyes came in and kind of destroyed that. That's kind of continued on through all the other problems that come with it. And I think, and I was at the game on Tuesday, it was just as soon as the first one went in, everyone kind of went, well, that's it then. That's us done. That's the game over. We'll concede a second before half time. Lo and behold, we did. I mean, there's problems off the pitch. There's huge problems off the pitch, and we know that, and that's the biggest problem. But we've also got huge problems on the pitch. There's 11 players there, apart from maybe Joel Asoro and potentially, off the top of my head, I'm struggling here. Probably there's only really Asoro showing anything, to be honest with you, at the moment. And he's an 18-year-old kid. He shouldn't have to carry a can that has a team with Aidan McGeady, Callum McManaman, John O'Shea, and most importantly, Lee Cattermole. An 18-year-old shouldn't be carrying that
can.
You're
right.
Kind of moving away a little bit, looking at sort of the actual results, which is kind of hard to speak about these days. A bit of a mixed bag your last 6 games. What is that? Is that the season you've been having, or?
You never know what's going to happen. I mean, the Forest match, I just sat there in absolute disbelief, shock. I mean, do you know what the worst thing is when you're sort of reading about the opposition? And like I've said this for years, and you can probably identify with this as well, with something and the kind of runs that our clubs have. Someone hasn't scored for a year. Someone hasn't scored for 18 months. Someone hasn't done this. Someone hasn't done that. And you're thinking, I'm straight down the bookies for a hat-trick on him. And you kind of, in the first 30 seconds of how the game's going, I defy anyone who supported a club that sometimes these things happen to where you say, oh God, they're not up for it today. Oh Christ, here we go. Oh Jesus. And it was a bit like that. And, we scored 2 goals and it kind of flattered us a little bit. We were absolutely appalling. A bit more, we got a young lad from Northern Ireland called Paul Smith. Unfortunately, he signed from a club called Linfield, who are like Satan in Ireland, but never mind. As I said, I'm a Glentoran fan as well, so they're our rivals. And it's nice to see him have so much spirit. He's young, he's very quick, but he's got that drive. He's kind of got that, I'm going to leave my soul on this pitch attitude. And I think as fans, we all love that. It doesn't matter. You don't want them to turn into Messi or Pele or Jordy Best or anyone like that there. You just want them to leave their soul on the pitch, stick their foot in, do things, try and create things and never give up. And you're kind of thinking, if we can get some more lads like him, and there is some lads coming through, and you're thinking, I can see the green shoots. Do you know what I mean? I can see whether Holloway will be there at the end of the season to bring them through. I don't know, because last season he went on 2 lots of 6 defeats in the spin. And his football at times it's hard going, I mean, I don't know how much input the coaches like Bircham and that have. I would say no one needed. And his interviews, he's very much his own person, so he will probably be masterminding everything himself. But we brought on a centre half for a striker at one point, and he did this before many years ago in his first stint. And he got away with it, thank God. But if we had got beat by Derby, he would have got absolutely hammered. So yeah, we're having a strange old season where the fans are not turning up. There's something wrong. Season tickets have come out. I mean, and it's a real pain that I see with the club, because they're going for a cheap headline grab of like really cheap season tickets, about 210 quid, but they only released 150 of them in a bad section of the ground. And you just know that so they can say, look, you can watch QPR for this point. And you think, no, what about giving an overall reduction? Do you know what I mean? The thing about Championship, it's soul destroying to see empty seats, as you well know, and it just kills you. I don't understand why clubs can't have a rethink. I mean, yes, we've paid our season tickets. Yes, we've paid that. But I don't care if someone comes in paying cheaper money than me. Fill the ground. Give it an atmosphere. There's nothing worse than just looking at rows and rows of empty seats. It's soul destroying, and that's not what our club should be about.
No, and I mean, our seats are dwindling and dwindling, and I think, I was always the kind of person that said get behind the club and stuff like that. But I think there's also a debate surrounding that as well, with owners and things like that as well. As do you want to finance the owner, so to speak? And a lot of people have that opinion as well. I mean, it's weird, but it's horrible. Like I hate going to the Stadium Light and seeing what to me is looking more and more like 30,000 empty seats, despite the fact they tell us there's 30,000 or 27,000 there. It certainly doesn't look like it. And I struggle to blame anyone, but it doesn't mean I don't miss it being full, because, I remember times, I imagine you've been to the Stadium Light a few times. I remember QPR coming on, Mike Sheeran scored 2 goals and rescued it from us. We were 2-0 up and you pulled about a 2-2. It's a Friday night. But I mean, if you were there and you can remember the atmosphere of those days, even the days when Martin O'Neill was here, and I think we won 3-1. Even then, when the Stadium Light is full and it's rocking, it's I'm biased, but there's not many better places. I think the Northeast as a whole is like that. As much as it pains me to say, those bastards up the road are actually all right when they're behind their own lot. The Northeast is a football mad city, football mad area. Sorry, it's Sunderland's we're daft about football. Newcastle are daft about football. Middlesbrough, they're nowhere near as big as us too, but they like their football. It's a working class area at the end of the day, and I think we like football. That's what we live for. And when you see a stadium empty in a club in a city that lives for football, you've got to start thinking, how seriously wrong are things? Because Roker Park, when I was growing up, even when we were in, kind of where we are now, sort of, but not quite as bad, like 93, 94, it was still packed. I mean, it was only 20,000, which is the same amount as what we've got in the stadium now, give or take. But Roker Park was still packed. It still had a sense of humour, even when things were shit. Right now, it's not even just empty seats. It's like a lack of voice. People aren't even angry enough to shout at the owner. They're just apathetic. The only kind of action you ever see is someone shouting at another fan, because you've got one fan saying, get behind the team. You've got another fan saying, I don't want to. I can't be asked. I don't deserve it. And that's the only time you see anyone raise their voice. We're just so apathetic. It does feel like a dead football club. It really feels genuinely dead. And I think I don't know if I'm pleased to hear it from other fans. Like I am and I'm not, because I'd rather not hear it from anyone. I'd rather people hate us for being dead successful. But it's nice people are noticing what's happening with our club, because sometimes when outsiders are noticing what's happened, sometimes there's a bit of a, it's not a siege mentality. That's would be the wrong thing to say. But if other clubs from other fans are noticing what's happening at Sunderland, it kind of cranks up the pressure a little bit on Ella Short to get out from outside of Sunderland, because it starts going in the papers, it starts going on blogs, it starts getting talked about on podcasts. And all of a sudden, although these people are quite hard to move, it certainly does crank the pressure a little bit, because he's just got to go. I mean, this can't go on much longer for Sunderland. It really can't, because it feels like, it just feels like we're falling down this big well and there's just no bottom of it. It feels like my dad said to me the other day, he's like, this is so bad that if he doesn't sell in the next couple of years, we could be looking at the conference. I mean, I always laugh at my dad, because my dad's the most pessimistic bastard I've ever met in my life. I remember he said to me once, always look towards getting beat, because then you won't be disappointed. And that was like one of my dad's bit of advice when I was a kid, which tells you everything about my dad. But when my dad said that to me the other day and said, if he doesn't sell in the next couple of years, we could be looking at the conference. And for the first time in my life, I was like, bloody hell, he might not be wrong. It happened to Luton. And I know Luton are very different to us, but mismanagement doesn't differentiate. It won't let big clubs in 48,000 football stadiums stay up because we've got a nice big stadium with a nice big fan base. If we're shit and we're mismanaged, we'll tumble. And if he doesn't sell soon, we had interest in the summer from a German consortium. He said he didn't feel it was going to be left in the best hands. I don't think it can get much worse. Do you know what I mean? I generally don't think you can get much worse than Ellis Shaw. Like, I don't think he's done it purposefully. Like, I don't think he's, really took hold of the club and thought, how can I fuck this up? But he might as well have, because he has. He's bloody useless. The only thing that pains me is that Niall Quinn was the man who found him. Quinny never does anything wrong, so I don't know what he was doing at that point. Jesus Christ.
Well, sometimes, I don't know. I mean, we had the same thing with Chris, right? We had a guy called Richard Thompson, and we had a great side. We finished top London's club. We just needed a wee bit of investment here and there, and he just kept selling our players. Now, he would say that he had to sell them to keep the club going. Yeah, I get that. We're not the biggest club in the world, and we were punching way above our weight, but we just felt a wee bit of investment here, and we could go places we've never been to before. And anyway, he got rid of Francis. He left. Chris Wright came in, and we just fell, and it's once you start falling, it's so difficult to get the club back into some kind of shape. It's hard. It's really hard, and I think you're certainly going to go through that. And you're right. Listen, at the end of the day, he just needs to go, and if he sells it for £1 with the best interests at heart and someone else. I mean, what I found was really depressing. I forget what the pub was called, but we stopped off. There's a couple of metro stops away, and we just talked to the Sunderland fans in the pub, and the with away fans and home fans is, despite what the media say, most football fans get on. There's, obviously, I'd never sit down with a flipping Chelsea fan, but never mind.
Yeah, of course.
But without that, you sit down, you have a yarn. As long as you're not an idiot, people, and the stuff they were saying about what he's doing, the selling he's doing, it just couldn't see the logic of what was going on there, and just, you've been better off filling the club even with, League One players, League Two players, and giving it a go, all this sort of thing. And so depressed and so not looking forward. I mean, that's a sad thing, we've all been kids, and I guess, even as adult men, we're still, and women, you're still the kid that goes to football. You still get that buzz when you're walking down Suffolk Road or wherever you're going, and you see the stadium, and especially night games when you see the lights. It's like it's the best thing ever. And when fans stop loving that, then the club has got it seriously wrong, and something needs to change rapidly, because you should never fall out of love with your football club. It's especially I know we're different to. I mean, maybe we're not so different because of the way London's being gentrified and everything else. A lot of people find themselves having to move away from Shepherd's Bush and Notting Hill and all them places where our fan base is based, and kind of where their mums and dads and uncles and aunties and sisters and brothers took them for the first time, and they're kind of like the last bit of identity with that area is the football club, because people are being moved out. I mean, if it doesn't stop, we'll end up in Edinburgh. And
you don't want to go there. Trust me, I live in Glasgow. You don't want to go to Edinburgh. Just a side note for anyone listening. Don't go to Edinburgh.
Did a job there a few weeks ago, actually. I'll say nothing.
Did you run?
It was a good job. It was all right. I'm actually that rare breed of football fan that has a flower business, as shall we say. So I'm not the flower, so there you go. Anyway, so it's kind of the way, and you said something earlier on about working class, and that's the sad. My mate's lad is only like 13, 14, and he's struggling because he's been to so many away matches and seen QPR get tanked, and it hasn't. We've only won 2 in, it's been pretty ropey. I mean, we've won. Beat Birmingham and Burton this year, and I think Birmingham last February sort of thing. And when you said it as well, when you're not winning home games, you're not winning away games, it's so demoralising. And that's I think apathy is a killer in football. Sometimes you've got to see stuff. And I'm sure if by hook or by crook you guys start putting results together, the place will get electrified. But then that only papers over the cracks because he's still going to be there. Do you know what I mean? I just hope you get rid of him, and I just hope you get your club back, because no one should have their club stolen from them. And then it also leaves the door open for the vultures to come in, like what happened in Wimbledon and stuff. It's just crazy. And as I keep saying, League One is, while it's fun for a wee while going to these places. I mean, we had some great cracks at League One, but you want to get out of there quickly. And that's not being disrespectful. That's just being blinking honest, because you just then become a massive club in a massive ground, and you could be the next Port Vale, although they're not a massive club, but they look at the size of the ground and not county and these sort of things. They're playing these huge grounds and only so little bit is full, and you think, how the hell do you generate anything in this place? You know what I mean? And that worries me with all clubs, because you have got a massive support. One thing you do, which is nice that Newcastle make you do, is that when you go to that Newcastle away end, you can actually watch Norway rather than the game. I've never known a club that puts away fans in such a shit position. It's embarrassing.
I mean, the more I think about it, the more I get so flabbergasted because I feel like such a broken record, but I just feel like every fan's getting it. Do you know what I mean? From an outside perspective, I spoke to a Villa fan last week. I spoke to a Millwall fan. I'm speaking to you today, and it's all different ages, different levels of fan base, different levels of club, and they all kind of go, "I'm really sorry. Like, we've had this at this point in our lives, but I'm really sorry what's happening." And I just think, do you know what worries me the most? We're the best part of 35 minutes into a conversation. And I haven't asked you what you worried about with Sunderland. Is there any player in the Sunderland team that worries you? Because it's not the talking point with Sunderland anymore. The match is not relevant.
Yeah.
It's got ridiculous. It's like, the more conversations I have, the more it's just a bit like, well, we're going down. How do you feel about us being absolutely ruined by this American owner? And it's like, yeah, I just feel like the football club's actually not doing the one thing it's paid to do anymore. Does that make sense?
Well, they're not being guided, are they? I mean, but then you say about those clubs like Villa. I mean, Villa are Villa, and I'm not sure what issues they have, but I certainly know with Millwall from talking to people that know the sport, they've got a council trying to build around them, and so they're fighting for their survival as well. It just seems that when you're not in the Premier, the football world, like the fake football world, which is Sky and everything else, just kind of forget about you. But there's so many bad things happening to so many clubs, and I think that's when you come to the podcast, you get the fans, you don't get the glamorous celebs, not that you just get the real people who watch the club and know what's going on in the football league. And I hate Luton Town with a passion. I'll be honest with you, I can't stand that club. But what happened to them was morally wrong, and it should never happen to anyone. And yet no one lifted a finger to help them. You know what I mean? It's just, and that could be any one of us. We're all at the mercy of these corporates that come in. As I say, when they start talking about brands and where they're taking you, and they promise you. I mean, we've been talking about a new ground, a new training ground, and God knows what for years. And you think, just sort the training ground out, do Loftus Road up, make it. Reduce prices, make it a bit more atmospheric again. I mean, what our club did, which I thought was at the time mad, is they took a whole section out behind the goal and made it into a family stand, and it's kind of killed the atmosphere a wee bit. And I'm not really sure how we get that back, because then you then have to move more people, and and then they say, well, let's move to 40,000 seat stadium or 25 or 30 or whatever. Do you think we can't even fill Loftus Road, and the place is falling apart? It needs fixing, and it's just. I think we've all got our troubles, do you know what I mean? And sometimes, like we had the playoff win a few years ago at Wembley, which is probably one of the best days of my life, apart from my daughter being born. But you kind of, that's what we all live for, isn't it? That them glorious moments. Like you look at Arsenal fans and you're thinking, if you can't be arsed to turn up when your club's rubbish, then you don't deserve the good days. And that's not being bitter, that's just being honest, because you've got to go with it. I mean, Sunderland fans will turn up, QPR fans will turn up, and sometimes you turn up numb and out of habit. I mean, I remember watching us lose to Lincoln Fox and Motors, who were a car plant, which is one of the worst days of my life. And, it's just, you kind of think to yourself, how the hell did this happen? But
how do we get here?
But the same season we got to the playoff final, all right, we got beat by Cardiff. But you know what I mean? It's like that football kind of does that to you. It takes you from the depths of despair sometimes to the highest of highs. But when it's just, I mean, sometimes I've always said that, supporting QPR sometimes is like just a long, big kick in the nuts. Because it's just so and so and so. And then, like, the Premier League was just like that. And then you suddenly beat so we beat the scumbags down the road. And John Terry came down and got his arse whopped. And you kind of think to yourself, oh, I like this again. You fall in love with it again. And but yeah, getting beat every week is not fun. I mean, you've asked me what players I fear from Sunderland. I mean, McGeady's a good player. I'm not really sure how Shed's still playing for you guys. I mean, I'm sure, as he got his contract, he's got to stay there to he last kicks the ball. I mean,
till he's 84 apparently. Till he's 84. Apparently, that's how long he's here. Until he's dead, he has to play centre half.
I never really rated him, to be fair. I mean,
he's all right.
It's like Anton Ferdinand. People used to say to me, "Oh, he's a great player." I'd watch him. I'm thinking, my ma could do that, and she's disabled. God bless her.
Anton was all right for us, but I think he went to QPR on a free transfer, Anton, didn't he?
I think we might have given you a few Mars bars or something, God knows, but we were ripped off. I mean, again, maybe he wasn't a bad player, but he was bloody awful for us at times. Another one who seemed to run backwards when he was trying to go forwards. Wasn't the best. I mean, but we had some bad ones, Basingwa. When Mark Hughes was our manager, I hate Mark Hughes anyway. Always have done.
What about that?
And yeah, he just, do you know what he said, which still lives with me? it'll always be me, because I interviewed the board and they met my expectations, my ambitions. And you're like, wow, we've been interviewed by him? And how is that going to work? And it didn't, surprise, because he came in with his mates and signed players on the most ridiculous of deals. And we actually had Mark Bowen on the podcast once, who just went down like a cup of cold sick. And just didn't have anything for us. Do you know, you're interviewing someone and you just think, you're not getting this, pal. You don't. And I hated Mark Hughes anyway, because big Alan McDonald's, God rest his soul, our big centre half from Northern Ireland, used to hate Mark Hughes. And I always thought to myself, if Macca hates you, there's something deeply wrong with your soul.
Mark Hughes, he gets on my tits a little bit, for want of a better phrase. Yeah, he always used to really annoy me. But I suppose one thing I probably should mention, just to kind of sort of cover off, I guess, the match, that game that we did.
Oh, yeah.
So, you not remember that?
I used to, it's bad. I used to find myself going into the pub to try and have a pint for every minute to make sure I'd be absolutely off my head, and I couldn't remember any of the game. Terrible, really, but there you go.
That is something all over, and it has been for quite a long time now. I think we'll all attest to that. All the men and the women listening, we all attest to that. That's part of the day. That the session is part of the day now. It's not really the football. That's kind of like, that's the thing that gets in the way of the drinking time.
My mate who I go to football with on away days has always turned around to me and said, 90 minutes gets in the way of a good day out. And when things are going badly, when things are going well, of course, it's different. I mean, listen, the script's written for you guys to come down and win Saturday. As a QPR fan, being probably the most pessimistic soul, it's that sort of thing. You think, hang on, this is a sort of game we will blow it big time, because your record, without being horrible, is poor as hell.
Yeah.
You know better than I do. It's not good. But if I was a Sunderland fan, I wouldn't be too disheartened, because QPR should become a registered charity for giving away points and helping clubs out in the times of need. So, who knows? Who knows? I mean, I'm not confident in us at times. We seem to be Jekyll and Hyde. And, we're fairly safe. It would take, even by our standards, it would take the mother of all cock-ups for us to get involved in really. I think Burton have gone. I think Birmingham are doing their best to get themselves relegated. And unfortunately, you guys are down there as well, and Bolton. So I think we should hopefully be okay. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. Do you know what I mean?
You're right, mate. Like, you shouldn't be fearing us. I don't think anyone should be fearing us.
I think the fact you haven't won for ages, and I think that scares the shit out of me, because that's the sort of game we lose. Honestly, we lost to Vauxhall Motors, and I went to penalties, and with 2 games to beat them in, and they killed us. And I was just like, And our manager said afterwards, which was Holloway, penalties are a lottery. And you think, not against a car plant. Surely to God not. Anyway, now who knows? I mean, I guess the thing is, I don't know how many fans you're bringing away these days. Are you filling the away ends? Or?
We still pretty much fill it, to be honest. There's always, I mean, we took 2,000 down to Millwall last week during all that snow and stuff. So, yeah, you get 1,500, 2,000, I would imagine.
But it becomes kind of gallows humour, doesn't it? When it's yes. Like that, you kind of turn up. But what I hate is something you touched on earlier on. I mean, we had it with Jerry Francis in his second return and stuff, and a few other managers. Is seeing fans fight amongst themselves, because there is people who, if Satan was in charge of your football club, and we had that pretty close with the likes of Redknapp and Mark Hughes, they demand total loyalty to the manager, and you're thinking he's an absolute bin lid, that bloke. There's no way he's getting my loyalty. Not a chance. And people then start arguing and fighting. And I always find that really disappointing because, Mark Hughes was bad. I mean, Redknapp was an absolute joke. And they're the sort of people you shouldn't have at your football club, especially trying to make things, go in the right direction. I mean, people always say to me, who do you replace Holloway with? And I think, well, if I knew that, I'd be running QPR, wouldn't I? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Holloway's got to prove to me that he's there to take us into a better place and take us forward. And his record so far isn't saying that. But I hope he proves you wrong. And, I don't know what's going to happen in the season. I kind of imagine that it's going to be 50-50 whether he stays or goes. So he could be back on a Sky TV next season. Who knows? And getting his predictions completely wrong, as usual. But no, listen, you don't know. I mean, if McGeady's a good player still. There's still a good player in there. I mean, you've mentioned some players that... Yeah, but, why aren't they showing it? I mean, I watch, you watch certain teams playing, you think, you're definitely playing to get the manager sacked. You can't be that bad. I mean, I've seen it with my own side. And you kind of think, are they doing this deliberately? Or do players have too much power? Can managers shout at players anymore? Has it all changed so much? They're pampered too much, this, that, and the other? I don't know. You know, you talk to, we have Bradley Allen on the podcast sometimes. He sort of tells you about, you know, the kids at Spurs, and then they go out and loan them somewhere lower league. And it's like a real culture shock to them because they're so looked after at Spurs. And then they send out to someone like Rochdale or someone like that where it's completely different. And it's a real culture shock. So you do wonder if young lads need to do more of that from the bigger clubs and experience lower league football and go back to the boots.
So. I definitely think so. I think there's a lot of our younger boys that are coming through just now, and I think, you know, it's unfortunate a lot of them have gone, like Tommy Robson's gone to Falkirk, Tom Beadland's doing quite well at Dunfermline. I mean, it's very much lower level. It's Championship Scottish football, but they're all succeeding. Ledger's just gone permanently to somewhere in Norway, and you said something before about you watch young boys, and you know, there's George Honeyman gets a lot of stick from us because, to be honest, he's not really good enough. But he's probably my favourite player because he runs more, he cares more, and that's all I ask. That's all I ask, and I wish that some of the younger boys do well when we go down and do kind of, and you look at the saving grace would be look at Southampton, 10, 15 years ago. They went down and they had people like Lorna, Lambert, players who went all the way up with them, and they built a special team that has only recently been dismantled a few years ago by Liverpool, of course.
Southampton B-side, as we call them.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But that's kind of what you got to hope. But I think the problem with Sunderland is we're so mismanaged. Even the young boys get ground down, and Beadland, Ledger, Josh Robson. There's a few of the younger boys that just haven't been given enough of a chance. And you've got people like, it's took till Coleman really to come in before any of them got a chance, like Asoro, Madja. And you know what? The young boys have been our best players this year. Asoro, the past few months been far and wide better. Honeyman, say what you want. I think Honeyman's been one of our better players this year. Yeah, he does lack. He lacks an awful lot, but at the same time, his effort and his commitment, and he's got an eye for goal. He's got 4 goals this season from midfield, which is quite good considering how shit we are. We're absolutely shit.
You keep saying that you're scared the life out of me. I know what's going to happen on Saturday night.
I don't think so.
Is Paddy McNair still playing?
He's injured right now. He's always injured. He's continuously injured. He's made out of Rizzler papers. So yeah, I don't think he's fit on Saturday. Paddy McNair's all right actually at this level, and obviously he had a really good game down at Loftus Road last season. But the likes of Duncan Watmore and Paddy McNair probably would have maybe gained us 1 or 2 more points, but. Well, definitely Watmore would have gained us quite a bit. But there's another player. As soon as he gets back to fitness, he'll be gone as well if he comes back to fitness. We're a team of young boys who shouldn't have to carry a can. Experienced pros that are just well past their sell-by date and has-beens that don't really want to be here, but they do need to get a wage week in, week out. Jack Wardwell, for example, John O'Shea, Cattermole. And then you've got the good players are the ones that are always injured. And there's not many of them, to be honest.
Has Cattermole really become... Because he used to be the engineer midfield when he for them years, and he used to have the North East derbies. He was always trying to get himself the quickest player booked in history. So he's not doing it for you guys anymore then, no?
He's for me, he's been in one of the worst players all season. I think he's been absolutely horrific. And the thing that annoys me most about Lee Cattermole this season is he's a leader. He's always been a leader, and that's what we've loved about him. And that guy's been nothing but a coward this season. Nothing but a coward. Yeah, he's just, you know what, he's not leading at all. Whenever we concede, we've talked about this at the match of the day, whenever we concede a goal, the first 2 players that you can see on each photo with their head down, dejected, John O'Shea, Lee Cattermole, you've got 2 experienced Premiership players there. They should be G'ing up 17, 18-year-olds when they miss chances and should be going, it's all right, they'll come back, I've done this, but there's just no leadership there. And for me, when you've got the capabilities to be a leader, like John O'Shea and Lee Cattermole have been, and you don't show it, to me, that's cowardly. You're an absolute bloody coward because you're not man enough, you're not good enough to take that mantle of being the experienced pro and say, I'm not having this at Sunderland. I'm not having it. They're just letting it happen and letting the younger boys carry the can. Complete cowards for me this season, especially Lee Cattermole. absolute coward, and the sooner he goes, the better. That's how far on my estimation has gone.
Well, they probably will do once it's too late. Do you know what I mean? It's once the season's over. So that's what we always say. We're always like, we're just another clear out. But, the trouble with us is we've got a massive squad. We've got a revolving door, but no one wants a lot of our players because a lot of them simply aren't good enough. You mentioned Lee Camp. I mean, years ago when Lee Camp first came to QPR, we picked it up on the way to Hartlepool, I think it was. We picked it up the way on the service station. I think who was he at the time? I think it was a Derby at the time. I'm not sure. And he came in, played a blinder, and then he was there for a few years. And he wasn't actually a bad keeper. Met him a few times, and I wouldn't want to meet him again.
Yeah, well, I think that says an awful lot because he's meant to come in as the experienced professional. And he's absolutely shit. I'd love to put like something better here, but he just and again, he's a 33-year-old, and yeah, he's played 5 or 6 games, but he's letting about 15 goals in those games, and he's not shouting at his defenders. He's not leading any of the young boys at the back. He's got Clark Salter, Tyus Brown, and young boys, 21, 19 to 22, and yeah, he's got O'Shea there, but there's no leadership from him either. All the keepers have been rotten, but for me, I think Lee Camp's probably been the worst we've had. He's been rotten, terrible player. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what he's doing with his hair at the moment. He looks like something out of Shameless, but he's certainly playing like someone out of Shameless as well.
I think the thing with him is, certainly when he was at Rangers, he always felt he was doing us the favour. I always got the impression with him is it's just and. He's not like the ilk of someone like Kevin Gallen and people like that there in Bircham who were QPR fans who lived in the local area, got it, and you talk to them for hours and then they're like, I mean, I've spoken to them before about their hero, and their hero was the same as my hero, which is Johnny Byrne. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of have that, and you kind of think, oh God, and you think all footballers are like that. Then you meet someone like Lee Camp and a few others who just. You think, oh Jesus! I mean, we've had the one that we get. I'm not saying I rub shoulders for footballers, but you get them on the podcast, so you have a quick chat with them, and you get to know them, type of thing. And there's a lot of decent ones out there, but then there's a lot of people that come on. You just think you don't even like football. Do you know what I mean? You sort of meet them, and you just think this is a chore for them to be. It must be the worst thing in the world. Is the club say, look, you're going to meet some fans and have a conversation. Just do your best, not to say anything stupid. And they stand there and they just go through the PR thing, and then. There's nothing in them, whereas it's great sometimes when you meet a player who can talk and you can get on with and who cares about your club, and when you don't see that, it's so bloody depressing. Because I don't believe that in the old school way, like we pay your wages, we demand that you talk to us. I don't believe in that at all. But at the same time, I think when you see players walking down the tunnel and kids holding an autograph book and they just walk past them, I just think that shames us all. It's not good, and You've played 90 minutes, I know you must be tired, but spend 10, 15 minutes talking to the kids. You're the heroes, be a hero and be a decent human being, because, we need kids to keep coming back and fall in love with the game and get away from a blinking Xbox. And I just hate saying that, I just hate seeing players ignore fans. It's just, to me, it's horrible. And unfortunately, it's a modern thing, it's just, maybe it's because I'm bloody old, I don't know. Do you know what? I sound like, when I was a kid, I used to be at QPR, and people used to, whenever the kids would be talking about players, and say, "Oh, it's not like the olden days." Jesus, I am now that age group of people.
I'm getting this view.
I mean, it's like we had on the podcast, we had a guy called Stephen Street who produced the Smiths and all that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and just like he's a massive QPR fan, but he's also, I didn't realise he's a fully qualified referee.
Oh right, okay.
I thought I could rant about football. Dear Lord, that boy can rant.
Yeah.
And he knows what he's talking about, and he loves football.
The passion.
It's so nice. There's someone like that. I mean, we've had Sean Walsh on, and he loves QPR. He loves talking about football and stuff like that. And you think, God, they're not like doing that. I mean, do you know the one thing that really annoys me in life is Soccer AM? I just think it's the worst thing that was ever invented. And I despise it.
I've not watched it for a long time, not since Lovejoy left anyway. I used to quite like Lovejoy, but...
No, he's a Chelsea bugger.
I knew that was a reason behind it. I knew there was something somewhere where you wouldn't like Lovejoy. If you don't like Lovejoy, you can't like Soccer AM. That's my opinion.
When I was a kid, I used to really like the Cocktail Twins, and then Pat Nevin used to talk about them, and you're just kind of like, you're not allowed to like the Cocktail Twins. You're a Chelsea player. It's just it's up there with the wrongest things. But I mean, You know, I mean, God, we've had some discussions today, haven't we? We're trying to put the game right. We're trying to talk about our childhood and why you fell in love with football. And I think that's the thing is that, you know, now I think about it, you got me thinking about it. It's like, I love seeing kids come to Loftus Road and enjoying it and seeing the crack and you know, and seeing smiles. You know, what I hate is looking down at what we have as a family stand. And they're on their phones and on their computer or whatever they've got in their hands and kicking hands around and not really watching the game. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, when I was a kid, I used to stand at Glen Torrens Grand Oval when I was very small, and you know, you look forward all week to it, and it'd get beaten around your week, but never mind, you enjoyed it anyway.
Yeah,
chase through Belfast by Linfield fans was a great experience, and you know, and then it was only when I went to the Euros with Northern Ireland a few years ago, you're kind of thinking, wow, this is, you know, that was just a weird experience in my life, you know, and I just thought to myself, why this is what it used to be like watching QPR every week. You know, the season we went up, we won at Sheffield Wednesday, and we had to go up that season because it was the debts were mounting up again. It was just getting so dodgy, and we took like 9,000 fans up there, and it was the best day out, and everyone had a big smile on their face, and the crack was great. And you kind of, you know, for every bad experience at a Tranmere or a Vauxhall Motors, you can look at Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough and go, okay, I'll take that and just have that moment of glory. But, you know, whereas younger guys now aren't saying that with QPR, they're kind of saying this kind of like up and downness. It's kind of, all right, we had the playoff a few years ago, but I do worry about kids just being numbed by foot. They're not saying, I mean, Holloway football's quite...
Jeez.
Really?
Yeah, that's a big thing. I think, you know, the amount of times I've seen people go at the match these days with their sons, and I mean, I took my little brother who's like 11, and you know, come half time, he was like, "Can I go? This is like no one's scoring," and he started pretending that like if we had like a really bad shot, he'd be like, "Ooh," just to try and like get a little bit more excited about the game. And when I was a kid, it was just like it was sitting in the forward end of the clock stand and sitting on standing on the terraces, and just being able to see these, like, to me they were like gods, you know what I mean? Like Craig Russell, Martin Smith, like to me they were like Kevin Ball. They were godly. Like these were like guys who got to play football every single week. But like you could look up to people like that because it was back in the day when the likes of Kevin Ball he'd upend someone, he'd stick the boot in, he'd fight for that red and white shirt he was wearing. I suppose I understand kids wanting to play on the Xbox and stuff now. I suppose I get it. I think, you know, if I could travel back in time and not have the burden of Sunderland, would I take it? Probably would, to be honest, because there's the amount of money that is drained out of me and many others, and they have give stuff back. I mean, don't get me wrong, some of the greatest days of my life have been scoring in the last minute at Old Trafford in the semi-final, beating them on penalties directly afterwards, beating the scum in their own backyard repeatedly. Stuff like that, yeah, you know, I wouldn't change it for the world, but I think if you come into it as a fresh person with fresh eyes, and you just come in to try and get into this game of football, and you're seeing your team get beat 5 out of 6 games, and the one game you win is a shitty 1-0 win against Hull, yeah, I can understand why kids wouldn't fall in love with it, I guess.
But then that's because you are where you are, and you know, I've listen. There's been times when I've gone to QPR, I've sat there, and I've kind of found it's more of a habit. And then someone like Adele Tarat turns up, and then you're on the back of your seat again, and you're like, wow, okay, I get it again. And that's what all it takes. It's just like, I mean, with Adele, and like to me, he's probably the greatest player in the last 15 years I've seen wearing a QPR shirt. Just, it's a shame his brains didn't match his feet. He might have been the most stupidest human in the world, but by God, he was a talent with the football. Yeah. And he should be at a top club in Europe. He should be doing amazing things because of what that boy could do with the football. And with Ali Forlan as well, and people like that who are just absolutely class players. And then you get the down days, and when you sit in the ground, and like the Forest game, you've got your slide. You do it yourself. You've got your hand in your head, and you're kind of watching. You can't believe what you're seeing, and you're kind of thinking, this is gutless and everything else. And you know, I did that once against Brentford this season. I was like, gutless, awful. 2-0 down with about 5 minutes to go. We won 3-2. I was like, I take it all back. And that's football, because that's the other thing. We're coming up to playing Fulham in the 17th St Patrick's Day. away, and we always, apart from last year when we beat them, but we always get absolutely hammered at Craven Cottage. It must be in the contract of our league existence or something. I don't know what it is. And it's just awful. We get battered all the time there. And, and then we get beat by Brentford. And the worst thing is that we're slowly, hopefully it will change, but Brentford are getting a new ground. Fulham have got quite a very decent ground. The scum down the road are building, not that you'd ever get me in that shithole, but they're building like this whole big thing. So you kind of think, where's our future fans coming from? You talk about youth team football. I find it so disgusting that Chelsea can pull players from Sunderland, from Belfast, from Cardiff, from Preston, from everywhere, and rack and stack so many kids and take them away from the local clubs and then send them on loan, and then they end up never playing a football match anywhere properly and just get lost by the wayside. It's so rotten, that system. It's disgusting. I hate them anyway, but I hate them even more for what they're doing to football. It's so bad that they can just have all these kids. You talk to people at Tottenham and anywhere in London, and the real problem is that Chelsea just seem to be getting every talent that's going at every age group and racking and stacking.
Yeah, no, completely. Just absolutely wasting them, I think, when it comes down to... Yeah, it's been in the news, hasn't it, quite recently? But, Sunderland are getting a bit like that as well. Not so much the hiring, but just the sacking, the amount of kids that were just letting go for absolutely diddly squat who would, I think will go and do well. John Egan at Brentford is doing well. Conor Hurian was one of ours as well, scored against us the other night. Well, technically it was Oviedo, but, make of that what you will. But yeah, I suppose before I depress myself more, I'll take a score prediction before I let you go, my man. I'm going to say 2-0 QPR. How are you going?
Oh, really? Okay. Do you know what? It depends. If it's the old... when did you last win an away match? Did you beat Hull this year? Was that away or was that at home?
That was at home. We last won away from home. December, Nottingham Forest, 1-0.
You see, now I'm terrified. I've probably worked myself up into... Listen, I don't know. You never were Rangers, but I guess the least of you guys' worries is what happens on Saturday. It's what happens after that, I suppose. But yeah, if we continue playing how we played against Derby for 20 minutes, and we could quite easily win. If we play like we play at Forest, we'll get beat again. It's very Jekyll and Hyde. I have no idea, but I'll never predict a draw or anything other than just I'll take a 1-0 QPR win all day long. But it's quite sad because I'm not just patronising, but it's just pushing you closer to that trap door. And I just hope that somehow, if you do go down, someone comes in and saves you guys. And, I want to play a good Sunderland. I don't want to play this Sunderland without being disrespectful. I want you to
get it. Not at all. Not disrespectful at all, but I agree. Hopefully when we do come back, because we're going down, we're back with a bit more gusto. But thanks for the kind words, Paul. Honestly,
no worries.
It's depressing in its own little way that so many fans have said very similar about seeing how horrible it is to see what's happening to Sunderland. And, I obviously know it's disgusting. It sucks, for want of a better word. But I hope you really have a terrible Saturday. I hope you have the worst Saturday you've had and we win 7-0 and we go on and win every game for the rest of our existence. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. But... look after yourself, Paul. Thanks for coming on. Joy as always, my man. Thank you.
And if you're in West London watching a game, come and say hello. We'll have a pint one day, big man.
Oh, for sure, mate. Yes, because the pint is what it's about, not the 90 minutes anymore, as we've already discussed.
No worries, fella. Listen, good luck after Saturday.
Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the night, and have a horrible, horrible Saturday and a good rest of the season after that. I'm
going to watch Question Time and shout at Tories.
Yeah, none of us are Tory fans. We're from Sunderland, very much a red side.
I hear you, big man. Listen, you take care of yourself. And thanks.
Take care, my man. Anytime, Paul.
Cheers now. Bye now.
Bye. So that's the end of the QPR episode. Longer than usual there. Had a nice wee rant, nice wee go at the Tories at the end as well. Apologies if you're a Tory. Don't really care. Yeah, so on a football level, yeah, it's awful, isn't it? Here people have that kind of sympathy for us. I mean, not awful in the sense that it's not a nice thing to hear, because it's nice that people understand and they get it, and they wouldn't want to be us. And it's nice that people see something for what we really are. And I think it is becoming a bit more apparent to the outside world. But it's awful hearing people talk about us as if we're like the team that everyone wishes they weren't. But I understand it. I totally understand it. And I can just hope it gets better. I don't think it's going to. I think we need to ride out these last 10 games, deal with League One when it comes. He's got to go one day. He's got to go one day. This has to end at some point, and it might be a while before it ends. Strap yourself in. This could be a shitty ride, but would we rather be anywhere else than Sunderland? No, not for me. It's my team. It's your team. It's our team. And that's one thing we've always got to remember. It's ours. No one else's. And we'll always be there. And as long as we're always there, then there'll always be a Sunderland. Thanks again for tuning in. You have a good rest of the week. Have a cracking weekend. I'll catch you next week. Thanks. Bye.